Well, here we go again. I'm starting to feel a little like a private eye whose job it is to tell people that their spouses have been habitually unfaithful. I mean, they may already suspect something's going on, but when you give them those glossy pictures of a lover's embrace at the Motel 6, the reality kind of sets in. So I urge you not to shoot the messenger here. I'm just trying to give you some information you can use for your own decision making, I promise. I just did a video on the amount of hatred that some members of the Wizards of the Coast creative team have towards a large percentage of their customer base. And after that video came out, I got several requests to also look at Wizards' main competitor, Paizo, makers of course, Pathfinder and also Starfinder. It's interesting to note that both companies are in the Seattle area and probably share quite a few toxic social and political opinions. Unfortunately, I did find some members of the current Paizo team that very openly hate white people, and white men in particular, as much as Wizards of the Coast does. Now, not all of the folks over at Paizo have Twitter accounts, so it's hard to gauge their opinion of much of their customer base, but a couple of the ones that do tweet regularly reveal some pretty eye-opening and vitriolic opinions. So let's look at one of them right away. This is Vanessa Hoskins, one of Paizo's creatives. She's on their Pathfinder narrative team. She's a trans lesbian who is very dismissive and hostile to middle-aged white guys. I find this particularly amusing because I'm pretty sure that Vanessa, had she not transitioned, would be considered a middle-aged white guy right now. I mean, the cognitive dissonance with these people is through the roof. Now, I know that a lot of people out there will say, hey, biologically, she is still a middle-aged white guy, but without even going there, you see the fundamental lack of human empathy entrenched in these radical leftists. They can't even bring themselves to admit that, but for the grace of God, they were once one of these most hated of creatures. Vanessa likes to tout the fact that the Paizo narrative team is 95% queer and or non-white. I mean, most of them look white to me, so I'm going to guess that they are either queer or trans. Is there a problem with that? In theory, no. But people like Vanessa don't want to just fit in with society. They want to be treated as something special and, quite frankly, above the rest of society. They also want to tear down the people they see as the enemy, even if they used to be that enemy. Now, here's Vanessa saying that only cis-het white dudes buy comics, which is actually pretty hilarious because, as our friends in Comicsgate can tell you, the big two of Marvel and DC swear that that isn't their customer base anymore, or at least they would like to pretend that it isn't. So points to Vanessa for at least spitting some truth here, even if it was done in a dismissive way. She also likes to hypocritically talk a lot about having a diverse, non-white workplace, but it seems that she, like Kyle Brink over at Wizards of the Coast and so many of these other folks, can never quite bring themselves to step aside when minorities are able to step in. People like her would never, ever give up their cushy job for anyone else, no matter their color. We are dealing with some profoundly selfish and narcissistic people here, after all. As you can tell, Vanessa goes out of her way to run down the people that ultimately pay her salary. Now, you'd think that Paizo would have learned their lesson after hiring the likes of Jessica Price, who I did a video on some months back. She was an employee from hell who couldn't wait to stick the dagger into the back of her former employer after she left. She went on an epic Twitter tirade, pretty much burning down the proverbial house at Paizo. And here Vanessa is starting to show signs of being just like Jessica Price by going on Twitter to mildly whine about the cis men in a work meeting. I guess they referred to a piece of software as a knee to the nuts or something like that, and they used the catch-all gentleman when addressing the group too. Now granted, this is all just kind of mild bitchiness, but I guarantee the seeds of a future meltdown are in there. When Paizo is forced to let Vanessa go, or she quits, every perceived sin will be writ large for all to see. Because we are talking about the most petty, disloyal, selfish, narcissistic people God ever put on this earth. Paizo will rue the day that they hired her, just as they did when they hired Jessica Price. So I bet you think that was bad, right? But what if I told you there was someone worse? There is. But before we get to her, let me go through a couple of other tweets I came across from Paizo staff. None of these, I would say, rise to the level of consistent hatred for their customer base. Here, Jason Bowman is sending out a public request for women and people of color to fulfill a design team position. It all seems so dirty, does it not? You can almost tell that there's no emphasis on quality here or talent. They just kind of want to fill a quota, no matter the experience or abilities of the applicant. As long as they're the right demographic, they're probably in. For any of you Paizo players, can you let me know in the comments below the state of their recent adventure pass? Are they starting to accrue this sort of modern-day leftism, or have they managed to keep it out of the final product? Now, this is Logan Bonner, who worked at Wizards of the Coast back in 4th edition. He came over to Paizo, I believe, in 2012, and is now, I think, a lead designer. Nothing that drips with hatred here, but again, just kind of very dismissive of white, straight, cis men as being the center of some sort of social media chart that somehow placed the white man in the prime spot. It's the same sort of casually contemptuous comments that you saw over at Wizards of the Coast. I mean, just replace the word black with white in any of these tweets, and you can almost imagine these same folks going apeshit and demanding a virtual honor killing. The managing director of Starfinder, Thurston Hillman. Now, there's a blue-blooded name if I've ever heard one. Thurston Hillman. He seems to only reserve a narrow band of ire for white dudes in relation to their interaction with, of all things, succubi. Apparently, he thinks they tell bad succubi tales, going so far as to say that it's weird and skeezy for straight white men to give depth to these demons. I guess only gay black men or trans lesbians can do them justice. It's a little bit bizarre more than anything else. Then we come to Shay Snow. Now, this is just my opinion, but I think Shay might be a few dice shy of a full set. I think she's missing her 20. She is out there, baby. As you can see, she's an indigenous person who wants to decolonize RPGs. Now, I was sort of brought back to our old friend Connie Chang, who claimed to have a similar goal. But Connie, unlike Shay, doesn't have a spot at the Big Two. Well, at least not yet. But like so many others profiled, Shay seems to harbor a real resentment against white people, bordering on rage. I think decolonizing, in her case, simply means that she is not going to bother with white characters in her work, period. It's clear that she has no place, inside or outside the game world, for white people. She throws around the tired old canard that you can't be racist against white people. Bullshit, you can, and you are. And that's just part of the process of dehumanization, which is kind of their unspoken goal, I believe. Some of the things that Shay says sound downright unhinged. Apparently including potatoes in your fantasy setting is grounds to throw down, unless you somehow include the people or peoples responsible for the potatoes. I guess your DM is now required to parade a group of non-white farmers into the tavern where your PCs are enjoying their meal so that they can all give proper thanks and praise. Bizarre, baby, bizarre. And in addition to all the boilerplate hatred she has, I uncovered a really odd rant by Shay that kind of made me question her sanity a little bit. Here she is talking about the Satanic Panic back in the 1980s. As many of you already know, back then there was a mainstream backlash against D&D for being affiliated with Satanism. Now I know because I was there. I saw it in real time. It manifested itself mostly as your concerned mother doing anything from shooting you a disapproving look when you cracked open your books to outright burning those same books in the family fireplace. And I had heard of people on both ends of that spectrum, actually. I'm guessing you didn't realize that the Satanic Panic was all about women-owned businesses, Jewish temples being built in more places, and native religions. Now, I had to read this a few times because it was just so weird and bizarre that it sounded like it was written by somebody on acid. But no, there it is in black and white. And of course, Shay, who admittedly wasn't around for the Satanic Panic, has a whole lot of advice to give to us folks that were. And here she claims that we were bullied just for being nerds, not Satanists. Well, Shay, we were always bullied for being nerds. It's just that for a period of time, some of us were also bullied for being satanic nerds. Shay appears to be just as hateful towards white people, and white men in particular, as Sarah Madsen at Wizards of the Coast. And I do not care for this vile, disgusting woman at all. So what does all this mean? Should you stop playing Pathfinder? If you have your material and you're enjoying the game, I'd say just keep enjoying it. I would advise maybe to keep an eye on them. Are you buying any new material? All right, well, if so, maybe try to steer clear of anything with Shay or Vanessa as the lead designers, as they are despicable racists. And look, I will never demand that you stop playing anything. I'm here to give you information you can use to make your own decisions. You have to figure out what your own red line is. Now, if you are in the market for a new game, if everyone is amenable to trying something new, why not veer away from D&D or Pathfinder? Give something like Castles and Crusades, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Old School Essentials, Lion and Dragon, or even the upcoming Shadow Dark a shot. These folks do not appear to openly hate their customer base, even if maybe you and they don't see eye to eye on everything, and that is just fine. You should never demand that your creators agree with you 100%. That's too much to ask. And it should be enough that they don't openly hate you. And I would say, too, that many of the people at both Wizards of the Coast and Paizo do openly hate a majority of their customers. And both of those companies won't even address it. They pretend the problem doesn't exist. Rather sad, but that's where we are. Dark times indeed. But always keep hope. Things will get better eventually. Now, you can help make things better by raising your voice to these folks, sharing out videos like this to people that maybe aren't as active on social media. Let them know this information and, they can make their own decisions. Well, that is all. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you like videos such as this, as well as other role-playing videos. I do occasional reviews and retrospectives. We just did a breakdown of the Sword and the Sorcerer movie from 1982, not only as a movie, but for role-playing inspiration as well. Come along for the ride. We would love to have you here. And get ready now for a special offer from people who don't hate you. I hope you all have a great day, and we're going to talk soon. Goodbye. Hey there, it's your boy Double D, and I want to tell you about a great offer from our friends over at Neckbeardia. That's right. We all love James and Megan, and I am happy to say they love us too. That's why they are offering a 10% discount on everything in their store just for my audience. If you haven't done so already, check it out at the link in the description below. They work with a fantastic 3D artist to offer you miniatures with detail you have to see to believe. No need to print anything out. They will take care of that messy and smelly business on their end. All you need to do is pick out your next character or the next group of monsters your party is going to fight. They also have some pretty hilarious subclasses for you guys that are still playing 5th edition, all for less than a cup of coffee. They have adventures, Atomic Punk 2160 by the Basic Expert, t-shirts, and a lot more. Why not support people that don't hate you? Use the promo code DND10 for 10% off your order. And remember that shipping is free for orders over 50 pounds. That's just a little bit over $60 US. Visit them today and don't forget to use the promo code DND10.